Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of In Case You Missed It from the Insider Network. As always, my name is James and this is your place to catch up to date on all the film news, trailers, box office, particularly trailers this week. We've got a lot of really big trailers. Probably because Star Wars is out next week, so they all want to put their trailers ahead of that one because I think a few people are going to watch it. If you're listening to this show for the first time, you might be listening on YouTube, you might be listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, any of those. We're available on all of them, so go and check all the others out, like, subscribe. Particularly on YouTube, we have some YouTube-only content, so you might want to check that stuff out. Particularly film reviews, that's where they tend to go when we get around to doing them. We don't always get around to doing them as much as we like. And especially as it's coming up to the end of the year, we're going to do some lists talking about what our 10 favourite films of the year and what we're going to be looking forward to. And then obviously in January as well, we're going to continue doing the Benjis as well. And we might also have something extra planned to do with that sort of thing. As I said, big week for trailers, so we're going to start there. And we're just going to go in order as typical of when they were released. So we'll start with the Black Widow trailer, one that we knew we were getting. We just didn't know whether it was going to be at Sao Paulo Comic Con in Brazil, where I was expecting more news than what we got from Marvel, but we didn't particularly get anything, particularly public information. I know they showed some stuff. Some pictures from WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, particularly those. But separate to that, we did get the first trailer for Black Widow, a film that I wasn't too excited for. As I said at the top of the show, I'm looking at my 10 anticipated for next year, and Marvel films are always around there. But I found myself struggling to put this one on there before I watched this trailer. But this trailer, I really like what this is going for. It's very Winter Soldier sort of vibe. Obviously, the Bourne series comparison as well is very apparent in this film, and I think that really works and is a real strength. Obviously, an incredible cast when you look at Scarlett Johansson, who's on really hot form at the moment. When you think of her performance in Endgame, you think of her performance in Marriage Story particularly, which it looks like she'll probably get nominated for, and we'll talk about some other nominations later in this show. David Harbour, Florence Pugh, Rachel Weisz, all great actors and actresses, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them in this film. And I think that's really what one of the strengths is going to be, is these actors and actresses doing their job and having great chemistry with that. You see that in the table scene in the trailer. Despite I don't necessarily love the accents, and sort of hope that and wonder whether they'll do the similar sort of thing as to what they do with Scarlet Witch, with these characters going forward. If there is a future, I think Florence Pugh is probably the likely one. As it's been talked about, she might take over the mantle of Black Widow, as I believe her character does in the comics. Yeah, and great action, great score to the trailer as well. I thought unique, and yeah, I'm a lot more excited for it now, having seen this trailer. It's a big yes from me for this trailer. And like I said, some people weren't sure as to what necessarily the point of this film was going to be. We all know what happens to Black Widow, but it's just filling in some gaps and finally getting that film that the character deserves. So I'm looking forward to it on that aspect. Another trailer I got that I briefly mentioned because we got a teaser the morning when I recorded the last week's episode for No Time to Die, the next James Bond film. So as I said, we knew this trailer was coming, and it was great. I know Tommy spoke about it a couple of times on this show, how he wasn't looking forward to it after the announcement thing, and saying that Cary Fukunaga didn't look like and sound like he wanted to produce a James Bond film. He just wanted to do an action film. Um, and it feels like James Bond, this trailer. I'm not worried about that anymore. The story is tying into some stuff that we already know, particularly from Spectre and obviously the rest of the Daniel Craig films, and they all kind of tied together. Um, some great action, some really interesting stuff, um, and not any particular big surprises in this trailer at all. Obviously, you get to see Rami Malek's villain character. We see Blofeld back as well. Um, I think it looks great, and another. Speaking of ones that I'm looking forward to next year, this is definitely up there for me. It's another Bond film. I can't complain with that. Obviously, it's going to be Daniel Craig's last one. I'm interested to see where they leave off, and um, I think they've left a lot of doors open now for the future of this franchise afterwards, and I think this film is definitely gonna set some of that up, particularly with her name has just skipped my mind as I try and look it up. Lashana Lynch, that's it. I think there's potential there for the franchise to continue. There's just 007 is the franchise, and Lashana Lynch can become like the female Bond type character, and we can follow stories with that character going forward, and maybe give James Bond as a character a bit of a rest. Some people have said so that Daniel Craig can have a break from it and maybe come back in a few years. I don't think he'd want to do that, and I don't think I'd necessarily want to see that. I know I've spoken about how I'd like to see them go back to it set in the 60s, and a Bond film set in the 60s would be great, and I'd be really, really interested in that. So that's what I'd like to see them do. Whether this is the end for the Bond character, and I don't necessarily think he'd die in this film, but I think you could close off his story and then fill in gaps and have films set in the 60s, in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Just fill in those sort of gaps, especially as those films don't link together as much as the Craig ones do. I also don't know how that'd work particularly as well, because obviously Casino Royale is when he first becomes a 00. And pretty much every other film since it's been like, oh, you're too old for this. But no, this was a big yes for me. I'm really looking forward to it, and I've got a lot more faith in it after seeing this trailer. The next trailer we got was for Mulan. I remember talking about this trailer, the first trailer for this on this show, and not being too sure on it. I felt like it was missing something, but I think this trailer really, I understand now what it's going for. I think Cinderella is a really good comparison, particularly for these live action remakes for this film, where it does seem to be doing its own thing. It's expanding the narrative that we knew from the animated film, and doing it the right way, not just obviously doing the Lion King thing of exactly recreating the film, but going back to the source material, going at it from that angle rather than exactly copying the Disney original. Some great action as well, and I'm looking forward to that. Looks like we're gonna get some big battles. Obviously, not gonna have the songs in there, and I think that works. Yeah, no, I'm really interested in it now. I've really done a U-turn on this film, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this. And I think it's going to be really big. Obviously, particularly in the Chinese market for the obvious reason, but I think it's going to do really well worldwide as well. And I think this is going to be a really strong film for Disney and a big statement for them, and hopefully put them back on the right track of what to do with any of these live action remakes as well. The next trailer we got was one from Sao Paulo Comic-Con. Ryan Reynolds was there and dropped the first trailer for Free Guy, a film about his character called Guy, who is essentially an NPC, a non-playable character in a GTA Online type game, who decides he wants to be part of the fun. He wants to have his own life instead of going out for his mundane thing. It's very Wreck-It Ralph, and that's very much what it feels like. I wouldn't be surprised perhaps if they go into other games, like Wreck-It Ralph did. I don't know whether that comparison would be too obvious. It certainly feels like a more adult version of that. I am interested in it. It didn't blow me away, the trailer. I think it could be a very hit or miss film. Ryan Reynolds himself obviously has a huge pull. I think the talent involved is what gets me excited for this. Obviously, Ryan Reynolds is great. You've got Taika Waititi, Jodie Comer. I haven't seen in too much, and that's kind of where I'm more interested in the film rather than the video game story aspect of it. I think it's a story that we have seen before. By the looks of it, looks a bit like the Lego Movie as well. I kind of get that sort of vibe from it. I think it could work if the laughs are there, then it will work. I don't know if there'll be enough story there to make it unique enough to survive and be strong enough on its own merit. Otherwise, but it's still a yes from me. So a 4 for 4 yeses so far. Will that continue with the trailer that ended this Comic-Con? The biggest trailer, arguably of the week. As I said, lots of big trailers, so you could definitely argue that this one was the biggest. The first trailer for Wonder Woman 1984. We obviously see a return of Steve Trevor. We can speculate a little bit about how he has returned. I wonder whether it's the trailer seems to suggest it's a cloning sort of thing with Maxwell Lord, perhaps. There's also other theories out there that perhaps Zeus has managed to bring him back to life, and obviously Diana had spoke about in the last how Zeus is technically her father as well. So there could be something to do there, and that's obviously kind of links to her swinging from the lightning as well during the trailer. I'm disappointed that we didn't get to see any Cheetah in this film, and that kind of gets me a little bit worried. I think the Maxwell Lord stuff looks great, but then knowing that Kristen Wiig is playing Cheetah, we don't see any of that in this trailer, which kind of worries me a little bit. I'm worried there's going to be a little bit Spider-Man 3 in the... Is it just setting up a villain pointlessly, and then we're just going to get them in the battle at the end, and it's not going to really work? I'm also worried that the final battle was going to be a big CGI thing, like we kind of used to. I don't really know what that's going to be at the moment. Again, another strong trailer. You kind of get these from the bigger studios. They know who to hire. They've got good rapport with the trailer companies that make these trailers. So, not surprised that it's a solid trailer. I'm still a little worried about this film though. But from this trailer, it's strong. I not particularly any two major gripes from that. So it's a yes from me for this. I'm interested. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what they do, and it's always great to see Pedro Pascal as well. I can't not mention that, and the Mandalorian himself. The final trailer we got, which dropped yesterday, was for Ghostbusters Afterlife. And my problem with this trailer is it's the sort of trailer that works if you're seeing it for the first time in the cinema, and you're not aware that what this trailer is for. Um, but if you know it's a Ghostbusters trailer, then I don't necessarily think it's as strong as it likes to make it out to be. Maybe that's part of the problem I have having to watch trailers and liking to watch trailers the day of on YouTube, or seeing them on Facebook and seeing who it's shared by or what the comment above it is, so that I know what trailer I'm watching. Um, Whereas if you're watching this in the cinema and this comes on, you probably get a little bit more intrigued about it, and then when you get the reveals of stuff in the trailer, it gets a little bit more exciting for you from that aspect. Um, it doesn't give a lot away. Obviously, the comparisons are there for Stranger Things. I definitely get that sort of vibe. Get a little bit of a It vibe as well. And I think that makes sense. I think that's what they're going for with this film. I was expecting a little bit more comedy in there. Paul Rudd seems to be playing it quite straight at the moment, but we might just see that in a later trailer. We've obviously still got a while before this film comes out. But I do have to say, it's again for the reasons that I spoke about at the beginning when I started talking about this trailer, as why it felt like a weak trailer for me. Um, it might play better on the big screen. Like I said, if you don't know that this trailer, what it's for, and you're just getting the trailers before your films and this comes up, I think it probably would work. But knowing that you're kind of expecting these reveals and it doesn't come for quite a while in the trailer, it's quite a slow build to these moments, which I can understand their reasoning behind it, but I don't think there's nothing huge in the trailer for me to go, wow, that was a great trailer. And it's very much relying on the nostalgia of this is the stuff from the original, not doing its own thing just yet. And I'm more excited to see that than just looking back at what was great about the first one. So this, out of all of them, if I had to say no to a trailer this week, I think it would be this one. I can understand why people enjoy it, but I think for a trailer itself, it was just missing something to really grab me. Let's look at the headlines. Not too many. I'm gonna go into some award stuff to kind of round off this section. The first headline being that we sort of already knew this. This was touched upon when Disney took over Fox. But a new Planet of the Apes film is coming. I think we spoke about it when the takeover happened and it came out. What we'd like to see from that. I'm just going to reiterate what I'd like to see from that. I'd like to see them do a sort of remake, their own sort of version, continuing on from the Andy Serkis trilogy. I'd like to see a continuation of that universe. I'd like to see a remake of the original Planet of the Apes and what that looked like in this universe. Maybe from the apes' point of view, which I've always been with. I think that would be quite interesting. Or if they do want to go back to the human sort of point of view, I don't know if the reveals would work quite as well with that though. That's what I'd want to see from it. I don't think we'll get Andy Serkis return. I'm sure he'll have some input in it. Maybe he'll have a cameo or something in there. Maybe he'll just play one of the apes in the background. He's obviously been a big part of this franchise. Obviously, with Matt Reeves going on to do the Batman, he's not going to be involved. So I think you've got to look to put it in the right sort of hands. I can't remember if there's been a direct. I don't have it in front of me. But I definitely want to see more from this universe. I think the trilogy was incredible. The Andy Serkis trilogy that we got. So yeah, I'm really excited to see more. Something I'm not excited to see more of is that Disney announced we are going to get a Aladdin spin-off um, on Disney Plus for Prince Anders, played by Bill Magnuson in the live action Aladdin film that we saw towards the beginning of this year, May this year. And this was, no one was asking for this. I don't know particularly why we've got this. This obviously means that they can do a spin off without um, getting any of the cast back. But this character was actually one of the weirder parts for me in the film, and that didn't particularly work. Felt a little bit unnecessary. The comedy didn't work for me. I'm not excited for this. I don't care to see this. Of course, I'll watch it anyway. Um, but I'm not. Like I said, I don't know who's asking for this. I don't know whether Bill Magnuson has come over and said, "I've got a great idea for it," and if there is a great idea for it, then sure. Um, but I just don't. I don't care. No one care. Everyone. There's countless other Aladdin characters that we'd rather see a spin-off for. I mean, maybe not countless, but I think we just want to get this. I would rather get the sequel confirmed and get that in motion. I don't know what a Prince Anders spin-off would look like. I don't know. Um, but it's something original. Obviously it's part of the It will be a part of the Aladdin universe. Um, and I would like to see more them do this more with characters from it, but I feel like Prince Anders is such an odd one to start with. Um, I would much rather see more stuff with Aladdin, Jasmine, and Genie. Um, even I just don't know. I really don't know. I'd rather see stuff from like Lion King. I think there's so much potential, and I think we will still get sequels for Aladdin and Lion King. They've obviously done really well at the box office. I think a Jafar like origin sort of story that could work as well. Um, I think that would be interesting. I don't think anyone's asking for. I don't know. This doesn't make sense. The next thing we got a title for The Conjuring 3, one of the best horror franchises out there. Obviously, with the spin-offs and everything as well. Talking about spin-offs. Um, the title for this one is an odd one. For the second one, it was just called The Conjuring 2. I didn't think we needed a subtitle for the Conjuring film, so we've got one. It will be The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. And I think this is an awful title. I really do. It sounds like a parody film. It sounds like something scary movie. The Devil Made Me Do It. Something. It sounds like that sort of thing to me. Um, it really doesn't work. That being said, I can't wait for this film. I'm really, really excited. I can't remember whether James Wan is doing it. I'm actually going to look that up. Um, The Conjuring 1 and 2, I love, 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 love. It's not being directed by James Wan, by Michael Chaves or Chavez. I suppose it could be either. Um, let's look at what he's doing. He directed The Curse of La Llorona, which I didn't hear particularly good things about, and hasn't really done too much else. Um, let's just have a look and see if James Wan has any sort of involvement in it at all. I imagine he'll have a producer credit. Um, let's have a look. Obviously, Patrick Wilson returning. Where are we? Producing. I can't find any. Oh well, I'm sure James Wan will have some sort of involvement. It's his franchise. And he'll have wanted to be in good hands. Oh, I went way past producer. There you go, producer. Um, he would have made sure it's in some good hand. It's his baby. He got this up and running. He's what people loved about this franchise, and I just don't want them, if it's just going to be a trilogy, um, to end on a bad note after two great films. And I haven't watched The Curse of La Llorona. I do want to get to watch it before the year's out, particularly. So it does feel a little bit odd to me. It does. Um, uh, the next thing that again was announced yesterday, part of the reason that the show was late, so we could talk about this. Um, Tommy doesn't like talking about this award show. He says it's banned. Whether he listens to this or not, I don't know. So we'll find out if I get a message from him saying, "Why did you talk about this?" But I think it is interesting. There is stuff to talk about in the Golden Globe Award nominations. Obviously done by the Hollywood Foreign Press, I believe. Is that the right one? Yes, it is. I can see it at the top. There's some interesting things that were left out, some interesting things that were put in. I'm just going to look at the film stuff. They obviously do TV stuff as well. But given that we're film based and to keep this episode a little bit shorter, I'm just going to look at the film stuff. So for best motion picture for drama, because they obviously have drama and the musical or comedy. In the drama category, we have 1917, The Irishman, Joker, Marriage Story, and The Two Popes. No particular surprises there. The Two Popes would be the surprise, if any. The interesting thing there is that 3 nominations for Netflix in this category. They obviously have a great they had a great year last year with Roma, and they've obviously come in very strong. I think they're favourites for numerous categories. I think it's going to be a big year for Netflix. So it's not a surprise that like I said, Two Popes is the perhaps surprise in this category, particularly when I go on to look at the musical or comedy one, about other ones that weren't that were nominated in that category and not in this one. I find very interesting. Best performance by an actress in a drama. We have Cynthia Erivo for Harriet, a film I haven't seen. Scarlett Johansson in Marriage Story, who was very good. Saoirse Ronan in Little Women, Charlize Theron in Bombshell, and Renee Zellweger for Judy. This award season is definitely going to be very Renee Zellweger heavy. She's going to win a lot of the awards, it seems like. So I think that's a pretty clear-cut category. Best performance by an actor in a drama: Christian Bale, Antonio Banderas, Adam Driver, Joaquin Phoenix, and Jonathan Pryce. Again, I think it's probably Joaquin the favourite, obviously, for his performance in Joker. I also thought Adam Driver was great in Marriage Story. I watched that during the week. I think it would be between those two, if any. The next, as we look at musical or comedy, Dolomite Is My Name, so another nomination for Netflix. Jojo Rabbit, Knives Out, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Rocketman. This is where I find it interesting. Knives Out and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I wouldn't class them as comedy. To me, that's a very similar situation to a few years ago when we obviously had The Martian winning this category. Just because it has comedic moments in it, apparently that makes it a comedy. I'm sure there are comedic moments in some of the other dramas that were in the drama category. This baffles me, and I really don't like it when they do this. It seems ridiculous. Why just musical or comedy as well? I think it's really odd. And this is what the area that I don't like about the Golden Globes. I don't necessarily have as much of a problem with the Hollywood Film Press Association as much as Tommy does, but I think that this category, the way that they section it between drama and musical or comedy really doesn't work for me. Best performance by an actress in musical or comedy: Ana de Armas in Knives Out, who was great to be fair. Awkwafina in The Farewell. Kate Blanchett in Where'd You Go, Bernadette. Beanie Feldstein in Booksmart, and Emma Thompson in Lake Night. To me, I wonder if Aquafina's gonna get it. You can never rule out Blanchett. Andy Armas is also great in Knives Out. Um, I've heard great things about Aquafina, so I think that's where I'd put my bets on that one. Best performance by an actor in a motion picture, musical or comedy. Daniel Craig, Knives Out. Roman Griffin Davis for Jojo Rabbit. Leonardo DiCaprio, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Taron Egerton in Rocketman, and Eddie Murphy in Dynamite Is My Name. This, I really don't know where it could go. I don't think it'll go to Daniel Craig or Roman Griffin Davis. I think DiCaprio, you can never rule him out. Taron Egerton, I thought was incredible in Rocketman and probably the best performance so far in his career. And Eddie Murphy, I haven't watched Dolomite Is My Name yet, but I've heard very strong things about the film in general, as well as his performance, and that he's very much back, which is great to hear. Best Motion Picture Animated: Frozen 2, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, The Lion King, Missing Link, and Toy Story 4. Obviously, interesting that they have opted to put The Lion King in the animated category. So that will be interesting to see if the Academy do the same thing when it comes to Oscar nominations. In what will be about a month's time before we get them. I think I'd like to think How to Train Your Dragon would win it. I think that probably is the strongest out of them. I think Frozen 2 would probably be the second choice there. I think a lot of people go for Toy Story 4 as well. But I think Frozen 2 and How to Train Your Dragon 3 is kind of where I'm leaning. I think Missing Link, nice to be nominated. I think The Lion King, there's too much controversy around that. So I don't think it's going to take it home. Best Picture, Foreign Language, The Farewell, Les Miserables, Pain and Glory, Parasite, and Portrait of a Lady on Fire. From what I'm hearing, Parasite is a clear win for this, and perhaps arguably should have been nominated in some of the Best Picture categories, and potentially might do that again at the Academy Awards. Let's just have a look. Excuse me. At the supporting roles. So for female actress in a supporting role, Kathy Bates, Richard Jewell, Annette Bening in The Report, Laura Dern, Marriage Story, Jennifer Lopez in Hustlers, and Margot Robbie in Bombshell. This Laura Dern's win. All day, every day. I don't need to say any more about that. Best performance by an actor in a supporting role, Tom Hanks, Anthony Hopkins, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, or Brad Pitt. Interesting one. You can never rule out Tom Hanks. He's always great. I don't think Anthony Hopkins is going to get it. I could see it being Al Pacino or Pesci, but I think they could end up splitting the vote and Brad Pitt could take it. I think that very much could happen. I'm looking more at this as if it's the Academy Awards. I don't know much about how the Golden Globes do their voting, and that aspect of it I know a little bit more about the Academy Award votes. So, Best Director, Bong Joon-ho for Parasite, Sam Mendes for 1917, Todd Phillips for Joker, Martin Scorsese, The Irishman, and Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Don't know. Again, having not seen Parasite, but from what I'm guessing, it very well could be Bong Joon-ho. A lot of people were talking Todd Phillips. I think people wouldn't be happy if that won. But I also think John will probably be like, oh, that should have won. I thought Scorsese was great. Did some great work in The Irishman. Tarantino, you can never rule out. Haven't watched 1917 yet, so it's hard to talk about that one. Best Screenplay, Marriage Story, Parasite, Two Popes, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, The Irishman. I thought the Marriage Story screenplay was great. I wouldn't be surprised if that took it home. But I also think Tarantino you can never rule his work out, particularly from the screenplay point of view. He's always really strong and got really strong work. and to me, it's between those two. Again, haven't seen Parasite or Two Hopes, so it's hard to talk about those. It's also just my opinion, so who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Best original score: Little Women, Joker, Marriage Story, 1917, Marvelous Brooklyn. Haven't seen most of those, unfortunately, yet. By the time the awards actually come around, hopefully I will have seen a lot more. Joker's where I'm leaning with this one. I think that score is great and probably my favourite of the year. So that's where I'm leaning towards with that one. And finally, best original song. I don't even know. I'm just going to say Frozen 2 because that'll probably win Into the Unknown because that just gets stuck in everyone's heads. I hear it way too much. But yeah, we've got a little while to see who will actually win those. Whether we talk about it or not depends whether Tommy's on the show or not. Maybe we'll just talk about it anyway. I'll just do what I want. Let's look at box office. At number 5, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, staying in 5th place. Queen and Slim in 4th place. Ford vs Ferrari in 3rd place. Knives Out in 2nd place, and Frozen 2 in 1st place. No change whatsoever. Obviously, drops in numbers. All around about 50%, so not particularly any surprises there. Perhaps the bigger talking point is that Playmobil, the movie, bombed. It came out quite a long time ago in the UK. I remember seeing it. I think I saw it in about June, July. Then it came out a couple weeks later in the UK, so I'm surprised it's only now just coming out in America. And I just don't think there's better. With Frozen 2, it's just going to get smashed, and I don't think people care enough. There's not an open enough run there, so it seems a really odd time to release it. Next weekend's a big one for the American audience. They've got quite a lot coming out. Jumanji: The Next Level, Richard Jewell, Uncut Gems, Black Christmas, and Bombshell. I'm sure they'll all do really well, actually. Particularly Jumanji, Richard Jewell, I think will do very well. Bombshell, I think, will do very well. Black Christmas, maybe the bottom half of the bottom end of the 5, perhaps, maybe a 6, depending. But a horror movie that audiences haven't had much of. Jumanji's going to make a lot of money. But that's it for this week's show. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to keep up to date with film news and everything going on with the Insider Network. Go follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Rate and review on any of those that you can. Like I said, subscribe on YouTube particularly because you get some content on there. If you want to listen on the other ones, go ahead. You can find me at Floodgate28. You can find Tommy at Mr. TT Green if you want any of his opinions on any stuff. I'm sure he'd love to talk about the Golden Globe nominations. And we will see you next week as we get that little bit closer to Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, which is just nearly a week away now. See you next week. Goodbye.